It all began one morning when, exhausted after a sleepless night, the mother decided to place her baby in the crib to rest for a moment. She knew her pit bull Max had always been a loyal and affectionate companion. But this time, she hesitated. Would it really be safe to leave him alone with the baby? She thought it would only be for a few minutes. Upon returning to the room, an unsettling silence greeted her. Max stood still beside the crib, motionless, with an expression she had never seen on her faithful friend. The sheets were disheveled and stained with a red liquid. The baby's breathing seemed absent. The mother froze for an eternal second, her mind racing with 1,000 possible scenarios. Desperate and screaming, she called for help. She couldn't believe what her eyes were seeing. The scene was horrific, and her dog had committed the worst act. The mother's scream echoed through the house as she rushed toward the crib, her heart pounding in her chest. Her hands trembled as she reached out, eyes locked on the red-stained sheets, terrified of what she might find. Max remained still, his eyes fixed on her, as if he too was waiting for what would happen next. The fear in her heart twisted into unbearable agony as she grabbed the baby, desperate for any sign of life. And then, she felt it, a faint movement, a tiny breath. The baby was alive. Confused, the mother frantically searched for the source of the red stains. Was her child injured? Had something terrible happened? She carefully inspected her baby, looking for cuts, for anything that might explain the scene before her. But to her shock, there were no wounds. Her child was completely unharmed. It took a few more seconds for her eyes to fall on Max. That's when she noticed it. Blood dripping from his mouth. Panic surged through her veins. Her worst fears were coming true. Had her once trusted dog attacked her baby? Was this his doing? Her hands shook as she clutched her child tightly, backing away slowly, her mind screaming for her to get out of the room. She reached for her phone, barely able to think straight as she dialed for help. When the paramedics and authorities arrived, the mother was still in shock. She could barely form the words to explain what she had seen. The scene looked horrifying: a blood-stained crib, an unresponsive baby, and a dog standing over it all. But then, as the medical team examined the baby, something unexpected happened. One of the paramedics spoke gently. "Ma'am, your baby is fine. There's no sign of any injury." The words didn't register at first. She looked at the baby in her arms, then at Max, then back at the crib. The stains, they weren't from her child. An officer, now inspecting Max closely, spoke next. "Your dog has a wound, a deep bite mark on his leg." It was only then that the pieces started falling into place. The blood didn't belong to the baby. It belonged to Max. Authorities quickly turned their attention to the rest of the house, searching for answers. They didn't have to look far. The back door was ajar, and near the entryway, they found muddy footprints, ones that didn't belong to the mother. Someone had been inside the house. A deeper investigation revealed that an intruder had broken in. At some point, they had made their way to the baby's room. But before they could get any further, Max had attacked. The wound on Max's leg suggested that the struggle had been violent. He had likely been bitten or stabbed by the intruder, but he never backed down. Instead, he had defended the baby with everything he had. The sheets had been disturbed not from an attack on the baby, but from Max fighting off an unknown threat. The realization hit the mother like a tidal wave. Her dog, whom she had momentarily doubted, had just saved her child's life. Tears streamed down her face as she fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around Max, sobbing into his fur. She had feared the worst, but in reality, her dog was a hero. Police continued their search and later discovered more evidence outside the house, drops of blood leading away from the property, suggesting that the intruder had fled after the attack. The investigation remained open, but one thing was clear. Max had risked his life to protect the baby. In the following days, Max received medical treatment for his wound, and his loyalty was celebrated by the community. People who had once believed negative stereotypes about pit bulls now saw what true loyalty looked like. The mother knew that from that day on, she would never again question the instincts and love of her most loyal companion. Max hadn't committed the worst act, he had prevented it. If you believe dogs are more than just pets, but true protectors, let us know in the comments. And if you want to hear more real-life stories of heroism and bravery, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You never know when a hero might be right beside you.